Go on. Sit. Previously on the Iliad, Menelaus and Paris, also known as Alexander, very important to know, were about to have a single combat, right? And they're going to swear a great treaty between the Trojans and the Achaeans, you might know them as the Greeks, right? To determine the fate of Helen, all her stuff, and everybody else. And now, what's about to happen? Wow. So now the messenger of Zeus, Iris, she went to find Helen, but she made herself look just like Helen's sister-in-law. Her sister-in-law, who is married to Antenor's son. You know Antenor, right? His son Helicon, he's the powerful one. He's the one that had her. I'm talking about Laodike. Yeah, she's definitely the prettiest of all of Priam's daughters. That's what Iris looks like now. And she found Helen sitting up in her bedroom. She was weaving a great cloth at her loom. It was double-folded and purple, and into it she wove all of the struggles of the Trojans, the horse-breaking Trojans and the bronze-clad Achaeans, all the troubles that they had suffered for her sake at the hands of Ares, the war god. So fast-footed Iris came and stood next to her and was like, "Come on, nymph. Don't you want to see what the gods are cooking up for you right now between the bronze-clad Achaeans and the Trojans? You know, they're the horse breakers. You know how before they were fighting all the time in war with all of its many tears? And they were just always wanting on the plain to fight once more against one another? Well, now they are just sitting there in silence. I mean, they have completely stopped fighting. Some of them are just like leaning on their shields, and some of them, they really like just stuck their big spears into the ground. Do you know why? Because now Alexander and war-loving Menelaus, they are going to fight with their big spears over you. And you are going to be called the dear wife of whoever wins. And with this, the goddess stirred up a sweet longing in Helen's heart, longing for her first husband and for her city and for her parents. And right away, she wrapped herself in her fine white linen and went rushing out of the room, letting a quiet tear fall. And she wasn't alone. She had two attendants come with her. It was Aithre, who's the daughter of Pythias, and Clymene with her beautiful cow eyes. And right away, they arrived at the Scian gates. And there's Priam, and Panthous, and Thumoetes, and Lampos, and Clytius, yes, and Hiketaon, Skion of Ares, and Ucalegon and Antenor, the two wise men. These are the elders of the Trojans up on the ramparts. You know, old age had stopped them from fighting, but they were still excellent speakers. They were like cicadas up in the woods who sit on the trees and send out their lily-like songs. So these were the leaders of the Trojans that sat up on the ramparts. And now they saw Helen coming up on the ramparts, and one of them would say to the next one, softly addressing them in winged words, "You can't really blame the Trojans and the Achaeans with their very nice shin guards. for suffering so much for so long over a woman like that. I mean, she really does look terribly like a goddess. But I still wish she'd go home in her ships, not stay here as a pain for me and my kids to come. That's what they would say. And now Priam said to her, come here, sit next to me, Helen. Come so you can see your ex-husband and all those kinsmen by marriage. You know I don't blame you, right? I mean, I blame the gods. They're the ones that stirred up war and all of its tears and these Achaeans against us. But come on and tell me, who is that? That big and strong Achaean, he's huge. I mean, some of the other Achaeans, they're shorter, they're taller than him by a head, but I have never in my life seen a man that was so beautiful, so majestic. I mean, he really looks like a king. And Helen, descended from Zeus, said, Father-in-law, I always have respect for you, and I always honor you. I wish that it had been that on that day when I first followed your son, death had been more pleasing to me. When I left behind my marriage bed and all my relatives and my grown daughter and the women, the lovely women of my own age. But that's not what happened. And now I have melted in tears. But still, I will tell you who that is. That is Agamemnon, wide-ruling Agamemnon, the son of Atreus. He was my brother-in-law, dog-eyed though I am, if he ever was. And the old man Priam said back, ha! Agamemnon, son of Atreus, what a blessed man. Maybe we should call him the son of fortune. Happy-go-lucky that he has broken all these young men of the Achaeans to follow him. You know, once I went to Phrygia with all of its vineyards, and there with all of the Phrygian people and all of their fast horses. They were the people of Otreus and the people of Mygdon, like a god. And they had lined up their ranks of their armies all along the banks of the Sangarius. And I was there. I was counted amongst them as an ally on that day when we fought against the Amazons. Amazons who are just as good at fighting as men are. But there were not so many then as there are now. Not so many as there are these glancing-eyed Achaeans. But now, a second time, Priam said, but who's that guy? That guy there. He's shorter than Agamemnon, the son of Atreus, maybe by a full head. But he seems broader in the shoulders and in the chest. And Helen said, That is Odysseus, the son of Laertes, the genius. You know, even though he grew up in Ithaca, which is basically just a rock, he still knows every trick. He has plans within plans. And now, the wise old man Antenor answered and said, Woman, you have not said something wrong there. That is Odysseus. Brilliant Odysseus, for he has come here before. He came here for your sake, with war-loving Menelaus in an embassy, and you know, they stayed at my house, in my halls. So I was able to learn the natures of both men, how they like to make their plans. You know, I would say that when they were standing in amongst all of the Trojans, it was probably Menelaus who was more impressive. He was wide across the shoulders. But sitting down, Odysseus was more majestic. Now, in terms of how they wove their speeches and made their plans, well, I would say that Menelaus, he was a very fluent orator, didn't use too many words, was clear. And, you know, I wouldn't call him long-winded. I wouldn't say he ever missed the mark with what he said, and that's unusual because he was still a younger man. But Odysseus, well, Odysseus, he just stood there with his eyes planted on the ground. And he didn't even know how to wield the scepter. He just held it still, like a simple man. I mean, really, I thought that he was kind of mopey. Didn't think he had much going on upstairs. But when he let the great voice out of his chest, his words were like snowflakes in the winter. No mortal man could match Odysseus for that. After that, we didn't worry so much about what Odysseus looked like. And now, for a third time, the old man Priam saw Ajax, and he said, "But who's this other big, strong Achaean? He's huge. He's taller than all the other Achaeans by a whole head." And Helen, descended from Zeus, she said, "That is huge Ajax. He is the wall of the Achaeans. And just on the other side of him, it's Idomeneus. Idomeneus, the Cretan, a man like a god. All the assembled Cretans are around him. He's their leader. Do you know, Menelaus and I used to host him in our home when he'd come over from Crete. And now I see all of the other Achaeans that I recognize, and I could name for you, and I could tell you who they are, but there's two that I don't see. Two of the men that used to keep the people in order, Castor, the breaker of horses, and Polydeuces, the good boxer. Maybe they didn't come over from lovely Lacedaemonia. Or maybe they came in their fast-faring ships, but now they just won't come down into the battle. Maybe they're too scared of what men will say about me, scared of their insults, scared of the shame. That's what she said. But the life-giving earth already covered up those two boys back in Lacedaemonia in their own dear fatherland. But hey, look, it's the heralds from last week. They're coming now to gather up all the stuff we need for the truce. Yes. So they get the 2 lambs. Remember the 2 lambs? Yeah. And the fruits of the earth. Yes, and the happy wine, but it's not that happy because it's in a wine sack that's made of goat skin, so that's kind of gross. And then Idaeus, the shining herald, he gets the golden cups, and he gets the big jug, and finally he rouses up the old man himself and says, "Come on, son of Laomedon Priam, it's time." The best of the bronze-clad Achaeans and the horse-breaking Trojans, they have now called you down into the plain because you need to cut the trusted oaths. Because now Alexander Paris is going to fight with war-loving Menelaus with their big spears over the woman, and whoever wins is going to get the woman and all her stuff, and everyone else is going to swear trusted oaths of friendship, all those that live in fertile Troy and horse-feeding Argos and Achaea with all of its beautiful women. And Priam, he just shuddered. But right away, he ordered his charioteers to yoke his horses, and he got onto the chariot, and Antenor came up on the very beautiful chariot alongside him, and those two, held by their fast horses, made their way out of the Scion gates and into the plain.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
And we're back. So now, previously on the Iliad, Priam and all the stuff for the oaths are coming down into the plain so that they can swear the great truce. And here they are. Priam and Antenor, they arrived just between the Trojans and the Achaeans, and they stepped off of their chariot onto the earth that feeds many men, right between the ranks of the Achaeans and the Trojans. And right away, Agamemnon stood up, and the genius Odysseus, and the heralds, the shining heralds, they led out the 2 lambs and the jug of mixed wine. And then it was Agamemnon, the son of Atreus. He drew his long knife, the knife that hung next to his sword on his scabbard. And he took the lambs, and he cut the hairs off of their heads. And the heralds took the little hairs, and they took them and distributed them to the best of the Achaeans and to the Trojans. That's right, you guys, so best. And then he raised his hands in the air, and he made this great prayer. Zeus, Father, you who are lordliest, mightiest, you who make all your plans up on Mount Ida, and Helios, Son, you who see everything and hear everything, and the rivers and the earth, and all those that are under the earth, that seek vengeance on anyone who would swear falsely. All you be my witnesses and guard these oaths. If godlike Alexander should kill Menelaus, then he can keep Helen and all her stuff, and we will sail home again in our fast ships. But if blonde Menelaus beats Alexander, then you better give back Helen and all her stuff, and you better pay us the honor that you owe us. That will be the standard for men to come. That's what he prayed. He actually said something more. Can I keep saying? Or I will be the one to stay here and fight on for that, even after Paris is dead, to get our honor back. I will be the one who decides when this war ends. Boom. And with that, he grabbed the lambs and he slit their throats with the pitiless bronze. And he placed them on the earth. Aspirantas, aspirating as the life left them, for the bronze had stolen their fury. And now they came with the cups and dipped them in the jugs of wine to get wine for all of the gods that always are. And now any one of the Trojans or the Achaeans would make this prayer: Zeus, Lordliest, mightiest, all you other gods, whoever is the first to trample on our oaths, let his brains and all the stuff that's inside his head pour out onto the earth as easily as this wine. His brains and his kids' brains, and let his wife be raped by others. That's what they would pray. But the son of Kronos was not going to accomplish all of these things. Not yet. And now Dardanian Priam, he addressed them. Hear me, Trojans, Achaeans, with your very nice shin guards. I have to go back to the Windy City, back to Ilion before this fight. I cannot stand to watch my dear son fight with war-loving Menelaus, not with my own eyes. Maybe Zeus and all the other gods, they know which one of these men will face the end of death. That's what he said. And he, Priam, a man like a god, he put the lambs back in his chariot, and he himself got into his chariot, and Antenor got up next to him in the very beautiful chariot, and they rushed off back to Ilion, back to Troy. But Priam's son, Hector, and Odysseus, the genius, first thing they did was they measured out the whole distance for the contest. And then Hector, he got a helmet, now empty, and he put 2 lots in it to determine which one of the men would get the first cast with the bronze. And now any other one of the men of the Achaeans or the Trojans would pray, Zeus, lordliest, mightiest, Father, you who make your plans up on Mount Ida, make it be so that whoever was the first to start all this shit for both sides, let him die away completely. Let him go and live down in the halls of Hades. But let the trusted oaths of friendship stay for the rest of us. That's what they would pray. And now Hector, huge with his shiny helmet, he's shaking out the helmet with the lots, and bloop, it's Paris's lot that comes out first. And so now all of the armies are seated. The bronze-clad Achaeans and the horse-breaking Trojans, each man sits down next to his fast horses and where he put his armor on the ground. You remember from last week? Yay. And when they're all seated, it's Alexander, Paris. Alexander puts on his lovely armor. He's the one who's the wife of Helen with the good hair. First, he puts on his shin guards, and they are very nice. They strap onto his ankles by silver, and then he gets his breastplate on, and it's not his, it's actually Lycaon's, his brother's, but it fits him really well. Then he gets his silver-studded bronze sword, and he slings that over his shoulders, and then a strong and sturdy shield, and a helmet that's well-made and bronze, and it has a horsehair crest as he fits it onto his strong head, and the crest nods terribly from above. And then he gets a spear, a brave ash spear that fits perfectly in his palm. And so Alexander was armed, and then Menelaus also armed. And so these 2 men were armed. And all of the Trojans and the Achaeans were looking at them and were in awe, all those Trojans and Achaeans that looked at them. But now the 2 men came into the measured ground, and they were both raging at one another and shaking their spears, and it's Alexander, the godlike. He gets the first throw with his spear that casts a long shadow. Boom! And it hits right in the middle of Menelaus's perfectly round shield, but it does not break through. No, the tip just bounces back off of the strong bronze. And now Menelaus, he's getting ready with his spear, and he prays to Zeus and says, Zeus, please grant it to me that I can strike down shiny Alexander with my spear, so that any man in the future, he will shudder to think about doing wrong to the man that hosts him and gives him friendship, like Paris first did wrong to me. And then he throws his spear that casts a long shadow. And it hits right in the middle of Alexander's perfectly round shield. But this time the heavy bronze breaks right through the middle, and then it goes through the really intricate breastplate, and then it tears a hole right through the tunic and grazes along the skin next to his ribs as Alexander ducks to one side and avoids death. So Menelaus draws his sword and hits him, whack, 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 3 times right on the horn of the helmet, and he goes for a 4th, whack, and the sword just breaks in his hand. And Menelaus groans, and he looks to heaven, and he's like, Zeus, you are the most destructive of all the gods. Right now, I thought I was going to strike down Alexander, and he made my sword break in my hand, and my spear cast just flew out of my hand in vain, and I didn't hit him. But now, Menelaus grabs him by the bronze horse-haired helmet, and he flips him over, and he starts dragging him back towards the Achaeans with their very nice shin guards. And Alexander, well, there's a really nicely sewn chin strap for that good helmet, and it's choking him in his neck. And right then, Menelaus would have won great glory. But Aphrodite, brilliant Aphrodite, the daughter of Zeus, she's sharp, and she noticed. And so she just broke the chin strap, which was made of leather, which is also dead cow, just in case you didn't know. And so Menelaus, he's dragging, and the helmet just comes away empty in his hands. So he hurls it, whirling into the crowd of his companions, and they take care of it. And then he turns with the spear, looking everywhere to kill Alexander. But Aphrodite, because she's a goddess, had just easily taken him up, wrapped him up in a thick mist, taken him off the battlefield, and just placed him right down in his really good-smelling, super fragrant bedroom. And so Menelaus, he raged back and forth through the ranks of men like a beast, looking everywhere for godlike Alexander. And not one of the Trojans or their famous allies could show him Alexander to war-loving Menelaus. And if they had seen him, they would not have hidden him. They hated Alexander as much as Black Death. So now Agamemnon, the son of Atreus, he comes out and says, well, Trojans, Dardanian allies, it looks like the victory goes to war-loving Menelaus. Time to give back Helen all her stuff, pay us the honor that you owe that's going to be the standard for men in the future. And all the Achaeans applauded. So right when Menelaus was totally kicking ass, Aphrodite came and snatched Paris away, put him up there in the sweet-smelling bedroom. And now Aphrodite goes to find Helen. She found white-armed Helen sitting up on the ramparts among all of the other Trojan women. And now she went and sat next to her, and she made herself disguised. She looked like a very old woman. A very old woman. One who had lived in Lacedaemon and who worked wool and who really made beautiful things with wool. and who also had always really loved Helen. And so now, like this, the goddess spoke to her, taking her by the hand and shaking out the immortal robe. Come on, Helen. Don't you know that Alexander is calling you home? You know he's already in bed. He's already on the bedspread that has the spiral patterns. And you know, he does not even look like he just came out of fighting. He looks like he's been dancing, maybe. I mean, he really looks like he's just now been dancing and just took a little break. He is literally glittering in his beauty and the beauty of his clothes. That's what she said, and she stirred up the heart in Helen, and Helen looked at her and recognized the goddess, both by her very beautiful neck and by her desirous chest and by her sparkling eyes. And Helen called her by name and spoke to her and said, "Daimonie, why are you manipulating me like this? Which city will you lead me to next? Somewhere in Phrygia or lovely Maionia, or maybe anywhere else where you happen to love some articulate mortal man? Or maybe it's because Menelaus has now beaten shiny Alexander and somehow, hateful as I am, actually wants to lead me home again. Maybe that's why you've come here with this tricky thoughts of yours. But I will not go. I will not become a thing of shame. Sharing his bed? The Trojan women, they will blame me for all time to come, and I already have enough grief in my heart." That's what she said, and Aphrodite was pissed and said, "Oh, aren't you a badass? But you better not piss me off before I let you go, before I come to hate you as much as I love you now, and I will place terrible pains upon you right in between the Trojans and the Achaeans, and there you will face a hateful fate and you will die." That's what the goddess said, and Helen was afraid. And so she just wrapped herself in her shining clothes and she went. None of the other Trojan women even noticed because it was the goddess who led her. And they came to the very beautiful house of Alexander, and his servants were bustling all around, and now they're in the bedroom with its very high ceilings. Shining among women, Helen came in, and Aphrodite, who loves to smile, placed a chair down for her, right across from Alexander. And so Helen sat there, but she did not make eye contact with her husband. And she told him off like this: "So you've come out of the war. You have come out of the war. How I wish that you had been beaten down and killed by a stronger man, by my ex-husband. How many times had you bragged that you were stronger than war-loving Menelaus, either in your force or in your hands or in your spear? Why don't you just go and call him out to fight again? Why don't you just face him man to man one more time? Or maybe you shouldn't. Maybe I wouldn't recommend that, because then, battling recklessly with blonde Menelaus, you would quickly find yourself beneath his spear and die." That's what she said. But Paris, answered his wife and was like, "Wife, don't tell me off like this. I mean, come on, these insults." Okay, Menelaus won with the help of Athena. And you know, I'll win next time. We have gods on our side too, but come on. Let's go to bed. Let's turn to lovemaking instead. You know, lust has never clouded my wits like it does now. Not even when I first took you from lovely Lacedaemonia and we sailed across the sea in those fast ships and we went to the Crinean island and that's where we first went to bed and we fucked. Not even then did I love you like I love you now, and sweet desire has seized me. That's what he said, and he led his wife up to bed, and his wife went with him.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Previously on the Iliad, oh no! Alexandros kai Philos Menelaos Makres en kesi kai xiphois makonto. Makonto kai ton de Aphrodite ex paraxon hieri poli. So now, the gods, they sat up on the golden floor of Zeus. And it was the goddess Hebe, youth. She poured the nectar out between them, and the gods took it from one another and sipped and watched everything going down below in the city of the Trojans. But Zeus wanted to start shit. He wanted to start shit with Hera, and so now he turned to her with some malice, needling her with this speech. Menelaus has two helpers among the gods, Argive Hera and Athena, the protectress. And these two are just watching, taking their pleasure, sitting. Meanwhile, Aphrodite, who loves to smile, she has gone down right next to the man that she wants to be next to, and she has protected him from the spirit of death. She has saved Paris even when he thought that he was going to die. And so now the victory goes to war-loving Menelaus. But come on. Let's all think about how we want this to play out. Maybe we should start up again the terrible war. Rouse the horrible battle cry. Or maybe we should throw down friendship on both sides. And maybe with that kind of friendship, you know, the city of Priam could stay as it is, a nice place to live. And Menelaus could take Helen and all her stuff and go back. Tell me what you think. And Athena and Hera, they were just muttering at one another. And Athena, she was so pissed. A savage anger took hold of her. silently raging at her father Zeus. But Hera couldn't control the rage that was in her chest, and she let out, "Oh, you most horrible son of Kronos, what have you just said? You're about to make all my work worthless? Make it come to nothing? You know, I have sweat and worked for this. I have tired out my horses. I have gathered these people, all so that we can do bad things to Priam and Priam's people. So just do whatever you want. But not all of us gods are going to approve." And now Zeus, the cloud gatherer, was upset. And he answered her, "Hera, what has Priam and all of his people ever done to you that is so wrong? So wrong that you rage like this endlessly and want to sack the city of Iliad. If it were up to you, you would come and climb over the gates and the great walls of that city, and you would eat Priam and Priam's sons and all of his people raw. I mean, only that would satisfy your anger." But you can do what you want. I don't think that there should be this kind of strife between us. I don't want this kind of conflict moving forward. But I'm going to tell you this, and I want you to put it in your thoughts. Someday, I'm going to really want to sack a city, and it's going to be full of the men that you love. And then you're not going to be able to check my anger. You're just going to have to let me. Because really, of all of the cities full of mortal men that are on this earth, that are under the sun and the starry heaven, it's the city of Priam and his people, people with the good ash. They're the ones that I love the most. I mean, never has my altar gone lacking there, not of the fair share of the sacrifice, not of the drink libation, not of the fatty smoke. And you know, those are the gifts that we count as the most. That's what he said. And now Hera, with her beautiful cow eyes, answered him, "Well, there are 3 cities that I love the most. Sparta and Argos and Mycenae with its wide streets. So go ahead. You just sack any one of those when they become hateful to your heart. And then I will not stand in your way, and I will not resent you. And even if I do resent you, and even if I did want to stop you from sacking them, I wouldn't be able to, because you are stronger. But now, make sure that my work is not in vain. Let it count for something. I am also a god. I am of the same race. I am the most revered of all the daughters of Kronos with his crooked mind. And it is not just because I am the oldest. It is because I am called your wife, and you rule all these gods. So come on. Let's give way to one another. I will give in to you, and you will give in to me. And then all the other gods will follow. And maybe you could order Athena to go back down. between the armies of the Achaeans and the Trojans, and maybe she could try to make sure that it's the Trojans that are the first to trample the oaths with my super famous Achaeans. That's what she said. And right away, the father of gods and men did not disobey, but called Athena and said, Athena, go now between the armies of the Achaeans and the Trojans. Make it so that the Trojans are the first. That they will be the ones to trample the oaths with the super famous Achaeans. And Athena did not disobey, but she rushed from his side and darted down from the peaks of Mount Olympus. She was like a star. She went like a star that is a great sign to sailors and to the wide army of the people. That's how she went as it shines with all of its sparks. Thank you all so much for coming again. I want to thank Jimmy Blais, who is the director for this week. Alex Martalogu, my always awesome project manager. Bardapan and Amit. And come back next week for Allison Darcy. Thank you, everyone.